I wasn't expecting her. Honestly, I hadn't even brushed my teeth yet, and the last thing I thought I'd see that morning was Lisa, my best friend's mom, standing at my door. Lisa was someone I had known since I was 16. She'd been around my entire life in a way, always orbiting the edges of my adolescence, playing the role of second parent without ever asking for it. But something shifted recently, a quiet, undeniable pull that changed her from a familiar authority figure into something much more complicated. The night before had been strange, not in a dramatic or explosive sense, but in the subtle way that can knock your balance out from under you. At dinner, we'd laughed just a little too long at one of Jake's stupid jokes, the kind that wasn't actually funny but somehow felt hilarious in the moment. Our hands brushed over the salad bowl, and neither of us moved them away. Then came the hug goodbye. Innocent, ordinary. But it lingered, just a fraction longer than it should have. Just long enough for both of us to feel that something had shifted. I barely slept. My mind replayed every second of the evening, twisting and turning it like a puzzle I didn't know how to solve. And then, at 8:03 a.m., came the knock, a sharp, delicate sound that carried more weight than it had any right to. It felt like a dare. When I cracked the door open, there she was, Lisa, her face soft in the morning light, her hair pulled into a messy bun, no makeup, a mug in her hand as if she'd just realized she'd wandered farther than she meant to. For a moment, it was like time collapsed inward. "Hey," she said, her voice quiet, hesitant, like even she wasn't sure why she was there. "Hey," I answered, fumbling, unprepared. Her eyes flicked past me into the apartment. She lifted the mug slightly. "I made too much coffee." That was all she said. She didn't need to explain further. I opened the door wider, silently inviting her in, and she stepped across the threshold with the kind of caution that hinted she already knew this wasn't just about coffee. We didn't speak much at first. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was thick, meaningful, as though every word we didn't say was pressing against the air, filling the room with unspoken truths. I poured her a cup, my hands steady though my chest felt anything but. She sat at the kitchen island, wrapping both hands around the mug like it was the only solid thing tethering her. I leaned against the counter opposite her, unable to stop watching the way her thumb trembled ever so slightly against the porcelain. "Rough night?" she asked finally, her tone casual, but her eyes not casual at all. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. She nodded, staring down at her drink. "Me neither." Her lips looked raw, as though she'd been biting them all night. That small detail undid me. The tension had been simmering since last night, and now it was impossible to ignore. I took a breath. "About last night?" "I know," she cut in quickly, her voice tight. "It was nothing." But her voice cracked on the last word and her cheeks flushed. She wasn't convincing either of us. I stepped away from the counter, circling slowly around the island until I stood closer to her. It felt reckless, like inching toward a flame, but I couldn't stop myself. Her perfume lingered in the air, vanilla laced with something earthy. And suddenly, I was 17 again, nervous and restless in her presence. "You sure it was nothing?" I asked softly. Her eyes met mine. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she bit her lips slowly, deliberately, like she was testing a boundary she hadn't known existed until this very moment. She rose from her chair until we stood only inches apart. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. But the fact that she was said everything else. Neither of us moved away. We hovered in that fragile, dangerous space where one step forward could change everything. Our breaths mingled, the air between us buzzing with anticipation. And then, as though the universe itself was bent on reminding us of consequences, my phone buzzed sharply on the counter behind her. The screen lit up with a message from Jake. "Hey man, heading over. Be there in 10. Her eyes darted to the glow of the phone. The spell broke. Her lips parted, her breath hitched, And in that moment, we both realized that whatever might happen next couldn't be undone. Lisa stepped back, wrapping her hands tightly around her mug as though grounding herself. She didn't say a word, and I didn't push her to. We both knew this wasn't simple. Not for her, not for me. She'd been married for almost 20 years, divorced now, but in a way that left scars invisible to most people. I'd heard snippets from her in quieter moments, how her ex hadn't been cruel, just absent, distracted, how over time he'd stopped seeing her, and maybe that was what broke me most, because I saw her, not as Jake's mom, not as someone older, but as Lisa, a woman both strong and vulnerable, sharp yet tender, the kind of person who remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders and cooked too much food on purpose so no one ever left hungry. And lately, she'd been looking at me differently too, like she hadn't meant to feel something, but it was there all the same. And me? I wasn't a kid anymore. I was 24, old enough to know this was messy, but also old enough to recognize when something was real. She stood there clutching her mug before whispering, "I should go," before he shows up. I nodded, though my feet didn't move toward the door. She didn't move either. The silence stretched again, heavy and charged. "What are we doing?" I asked finally. She let out a breathy laugh, one that wasn't amusement at all, but sheer confusion. "I don't know. This wasn't supposed to happen." "I know," I said. "I keep trying to tell myself it's just a phase, some silly fantasy. You're young, you've got your whole life ahead of you, and I'm just—" She trailed off, looking down at her hands. "I'm just the woman who used to make you grilled cheese and yell at you for swearing in the house." I stepped closer, carefully, my voice quiet. "You're not just anything." Her eyes lifted to mine then, stripped of every defense. No walls, no smile to soften the truth, just raw honesty between us. Outside, a car door slammed. Jake. Panic flickered in her gaze. She reached for the back door, whispering, "Don't say anything." I nodded, throat dry. And then she was gone. 2 seconds later, Jake walked in, tossing his keys onto the counter like he owned the place, because technically, he did. We were roommates now, old friends who'd wound up renting the duplex his mom owned after college. He didn't notice the second mug. "Did Mom drop off coffee again?" he asked casually, picking it up. "Yeah," I forced out. "Said she made too much." He shrugged, took a sip, and carried on like nothing was different, like he couldn't smell her perfume lingering in the air, couldn't sense how my heart was pounding. But I could. Every nerve in my body screamed that I was standing on a minefield and one wrong step would blow everything apart. Jake cracked eggs into a pan, chatting casually, completely unaware that the foundation of our friendship was fracturing beneath us. 15 minutes later, his phone buzzed with a text. He frowned. "Mom says she left her charger here. You see it?" Before I could answer, the back door opened again. Lisa stood in the doorway, freezing when she saw us. "Wow," Jake laughed. "Speak of the devil." She forced a smile, too bright, too rehearsed. "Morning. I think I left my charger in your room, Jake. Is it okay if I—" "Yeah, sure. You're in there more than I am, anyway." She disappeared down the hall, but not before her eyes brushed past me, lingering for a breath. A minute later, she passed through again, silent, careful, her glance catching mine for the briefest second before she left. Jake didn't notice. He just chuckled, shaking his head. "Man, Mom's been acting weird lately, like nervous weird." I shrugged, probably just stressed. But my chest was tight. My heart still carried the heat of her hand brushing mine, the weight of her unspoken confession, and I knew this wasn't over, not even close. 2 days passed in silence, the kind of silence that doesn't simply fill a room but burrows into it, reshaping every thought until it hums in the background of everything you do. Lisa didn't stop by with coffee, Jake didn't seem to notice her absence, and I didn't dare ask. But I felt her absence like an ache, each hour heavy with the memory of that morning, of the near-miss kiss, of the words left unsaid. The tension didn't fade with distance. It built, coil after coil inside me, like a pressure cooker ticking toward a breaking point. Every sound outside, every knock on the wall, every creak of the floorboards, I hoped and feared it was her. When the knock finally came, it was a Wednesday night. Late, soft, hesitant, but deliberate. The same rhythm as before. Jake had gone out for drinks and mentioned he might crash at a friend's. The moment he'd said it, I knew. I tried not to let myself believe, but still my heart raced, because deep down I understood she would come. And she did. Lisa stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her presence immediate, heavy with unspoken intent. She moved to the kitchen almost instinctively, as if she needed something, anything, to keep her hands busy. I stood a few feet behind her, watching the way she avoided my eyes, her shoulders tense, her breath uneven. "Jake's not here," I said quietly. "I know," she replied, her voice steady but fragile. She poured a glass of water, held it without drinking, staring at it as though it might provide an answer she couldn't find. Then her voice broke, almost to herself. "I can't do this." My chest tightened, my stomach dropped, but I managed to whisper, "Okay, if that's what you want." She spun suddenly, her eyes wide, raw, filled with an urgency that made the air shift. "Number, I can't do this, but I want to." Her voice cracked as though the truth had cost her something to say. "I wake up thinking about you. Every day I tell myself it's wrong, that you're Jake's friend, that this is temporary, that I'm old enough to know better. But it doesn't go away. It just sits there inside me like it belongs to you." Her confession broke something inside me, and in that fragile silence I stepped closer. "Lisa, I think about you all the time, too," I admitted, each word trembling in the air between us. She blinked, a single tear threatening to fall. "You do?" Her voice was so small, as if she wasn't sure she deserved the answer. I nodded. Her lips parted slightly, her breath uneven, her body leaning forward without even realizing it. The moment felt inevitable, charged, inevitable and impossible all at once. But then headlights flared across the living room wall. A car door slammed outside. Jake. He wasn't supposed to be back yet. Panic shot through her. She backed away, whispering, "I shouldn't be here." "Don't go," I said, desperate, my voice low and raw. But she was already moving, her steps quick and quiet as the front doorknob jiggled. She bolted down the hall toward the back door, vanishing into the shadows just as Jake's voice called, casual and unassuming, "Yo, you home?" I couldn't speak. My throat locked, my chest heaving with the scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. Jake walked in humming, tossed his bag on the floor, opened the fridge like nothing was wrong. He even laughed, saying the place smelled like his mom's cookies. I forced a chuckle, the lie already bitter in my mouth. "Not tonight," I said, my first lie. But lies don't stay buried for long. The unraveling began the next evening, though I didn't realize it at the time. Jake had brought up my ex, Amber, out of nowhere. He mentioned she'd run into Lisa at the store, that she'd seemed distracted, nervous, that she'd mentioned me. His tone shifted, casual curiosity sharpening into something darker, suspicious. He recounted the charger incident, the extra mug, the way I went silent whenever her name came up. Then he asked directly, his voice steady but deadly serious, "You want to tell me what's going on, or do I have to figure it out myself?" I froze, words tangled uselessly in my mouth. He laughed once, bitterly, shaking his head. "You're not even going to deny it. You just let it happen with my mom." His face was cold, wounded, unrecognizable. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but every word sounded like an excuse. And then my phone buzzed again, the screen lighting with a text from Lisa. I couldn't hide it. I told him it was her. He saw it. His jaw tightened. "Well," he said flatly, "she told me." "No, she just texted. She doesn't know you're—" "Stop," he snapped, raising a hand. "Just stop." He grabbed his bag, his face hard with betrayal. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice breaking. "To not be here," he muttered, and then the door slammed. The crack spread fast like glass splintering. Jake knew, and Lisa knew that he knew. And worse, she knew the fallout wasn't over. Her next message confirmed it. "He's on his way to your father's. I think he's going to tell him everything." The bottom fell out of me. My dad, the one person whose respect I'd spent my whole life trying to earn, was about to hear this not from me, but from Jake. The panic was suffocating. I found Lisa outside, sitting on the hood of her car under the quiet hum of night traffic. Her eyes were swollen, her face streaked from crying. When I approached, she looked up and whispered, "I told him." I couldn't keep lying to his face. I sat beside her, the metal cold beneath us, my chest heavy. "So what happens now?" I asked. She shook her head slowly, helplessly. "I don't know." Her hair was tied back messily, her makeup smudged, her fingers trembling as she picked at the hem of her sweater. Even in the wreckage, even with everything collapsing around us, I wanted her. I told her I hadn't meant to fall for her, but I had. She gave a broken smile. Then we both failed. The silence after was thick, suffocating with everything we couldn't fix. She whispered that if she were 10 years younger, or if I were 10 years older, maybe this would be different. I told her none of that mattered. We were both adults. She shook her head. But we weren't meant to be adults together. Still, I told her what I knew to be true. What we had wasn't just a mistake. She nodded, tears pooling again. Number, it wasn't, and I hate that I don't regret it. Her confession startled her, as though she needed permission to feel it. I gave it to her. I told her I loved her, not carelessly, not out of impulse, but with the kind of raw honesty I couldn't contain anymore. She cried softly, whispering that maybe I didn't know what love was yet. But I did. I knew this wasn't nothing. She reached for my hand, gripping it tightly, whispering that she loved me too, even if God himself couldn't forgive it. And then the porch light flicked on. Someone inside. Jake. Maybe my father. The world was still spinning and the fallout was coming. But for that single breath of time, it was just us, sitting in ruin but tethered by something real. 3 weeks. That's how long it took for the dust to settle into a new, unbearable quiet. Jake moved out, leaving nothing but a key on the counter and a look in his eyes I'll never forget. Not rage, not hatred, but disappointment. My father went 10 days without speaking to me, and when he finally did, it was at the same kitchen table where I'd eaten cereal every morning as a child. He told me she was a grown woman and I was a grown man, but what I had done was reckless, that I had broken trust, that maybe someday I could earn it back, but not quickly. He wasn't wrong. Lisa and I saw each other once more at a small park on the edge of town where no one would notice us. She told me she thought about me every day. I admitted the same. But she also said something that stuck with me. It wasn't about whether we loved each other, it was about whether we should, and she no longer knew the answer. I didn't either. There was nothing neat to tie up, no bow to put on it. We walked away in different directions, carrying only the memory of what we had been. Now I move slower, I rebuild what I can. Friendships, trust, boundaries. I still think about Lisa, but not with regret, not anymore. Instead, I think of her like a scar you trace absent-mindedly, not because it hurts, but because it reminds you you're alive. We were 2 broken clocks that ticked in sync for a brief moment. Maybe that was enough. Some stories aren't meant to last forever. Some are meant to burn bright, to change you, and then leave behind the ashes of what you'll never forget. Love doesn't always look like forever. Sometimes it looks like truth, and sometimes that's all it needs to be.